Tonight's topic is something that's dear to my heart and has been for a long time, and it's where your focus needs to be in order for you to change your performance. Now, in this broadcast, we're going to reveal to you the 3 performance indicators in human performance, and those are the hallmarks in how you change performance. And if you can start tilting that direction and where your focus gets towards those 3 performance indicators, it's going to be a game changer for you. And I'm going to kind of give you some insights this evening about that. So I got to tell you, the response has been crazy with this collegiate onboarding program that we're running. The conversations that we've had with parents has been unbelievable, talking with them about their young athletes. Also, coaches have been scheduling their calls as well, and we're doing 5 or 6 hours a day of those calls, which is pretty cool stuff. We're reaching a very large audience now, and that has been the goal, and we want to help as many people as we can to change their performance. So, what does it look like? Well, let me give you the backstory, okay? So the backstory. So I grew up in a small town in northeast Oklahoma, just north of Tulsa, and we had a 9-hole golf course. Now, I played multiple sports, but golf kind of took its presence, and that's what I really focused on. I played football, baseball, basketball, which if you've hung around me or talked to me, I really love basketball, and it's probably more to my heart than golf, but we'll leave it at that. And I had a pretty good little junior career and good enough to play collegiate golf. And here's what's interesting. So before we get into these performance indicators this evening, I want to talk about some things that happened to me that I'm finding out that I wasn't the only one in the boat. And now it's still the same thing with all these conversations that I'm having with these parents, collegiate athletes, collegiate coaches. So when I was a competitor, I would have these ups and downs in my games. I would shoot low one day, then it would be high the next. And that kind of went on for a good period of time. Every once in a while, I'd kind of get this even kill performance, but it was few and far between, if you want to put it in lack of better terms. And so what it looked like is that I could shoot, a low round in like 70, but then the next day it was like 78. And I would make 4 or 5 birdies in a row and make 6 or 7 bogeys in a row and shoot 30 on the front and 42 on the back. And if this is kind of resonating with you, you're kind of shaking your head. And so when I turned professional, when I got out of college, my numbers did drop. There's no doubt. And I would have these highs and lows in my scores, and I couldn't beat these guys. I could beat them in regular rounds of golf and maybe 1 round of competition, but they were getting the best of me. I couldn't get into the 5% because, 95% of all the winning is done by the same 5%. 95% of the time. If you don't believe me, just look at Major League Baseball right now, right? It's October. I mean, look, you've got the Yankees, you've got the Astros, but look what happened. Somebody got sick and tired of being sick and tired, and the Nationals got in there. And actually, one of my guys that I work with got drafted to the Nationals, and man, he's going to be a superstar. I've had the opportunity to work with him. So let's get back to this change in this performance, right? And it happens in every sport, all right? So when I turned professionally, my numbers did start dropping. There's no doubt. I even worked into the 65s, but I could shoot low numbers, but I would still have this high number. And it drove me absolutely berserk. And honestly, it's not a recipe for success. You can't shoot 67 one day and 74 the next, then 73, then 70. Those numbers don't work day in and day out. So it drove me out of playing competitive golf. And I went into teaching. Now you're going to get a kick out of this. This is funny. So when I went into teaching, I became a really good technical instructor. Now, the reason why I laugh at this is because when I went to get help with my game, when I was playing professional, everyone, all they wanted to do was work on the technical piece. And, I didn't need help on my technical piece because I could shoot these numbers. And when I shot high numbers, it wasn't technical because I could go to the driving range when I finished a competition and stripe the ball just like I shot 65. Does that ever happen to you? I see it so many times in youth events and junior events and college events where players will finish. They had a mediocre performance, and then they go to the range and they're just rifling it and going, man, there's nothing wrong with my game. You never lose your golf swing, but what you do lose is your ability to control your thoughts. And control your thoughts before the shot, during the shot, and after, and the environment will eat you up. Well, nobody talks about that. And in the day when I was growing up, all the teachers I went to, all they wanted to do was work on the technical piece. Nobody could teach me how to train. I mean, think about this. All the other sports do this. Football, baseball, basketball, volleyball, lacrosse, all your Olympic sports do it. Majority of your mainstream sports do it. They prepare you for competition. And they teach you how to train in your game. But in golf, man, it doesn't exist. It never did. All we did was just hit balls and overtrain. And then when we get in competition, what do? We overtry because we can't trust what we're doing. Nobody's teaching or training that stuff. And so when I went into teaching, man, I went into the technical piece, which, oh my God, it was my demise. But that's what everybody did. And I became pretty good at it and became a top 100 teacher. But here's the thing is that on that technical piece, I had players who went all around the world. I couldn't tell you why they won. More importantly, I couldn't tell you why they lost. And all I'd do is just go back to the technical piece. I'd look at some numbers and look at some stats and stuff like that, but I'll get into that piece here in a second. That'll blow your mind, stuff when you start talking about stats. And so I knew that there was a better way, and I wasn't getting it in my sport. And I knew that there was a better way to train athletes. I knew that there was a better way to think, and I really wanted to understand performance. I knew the technical piece because I could build the games and build the swings. And so when I built my academy in 2000, I built my academy in 2000, my youth academy, right? I started building it. And I had athletes coming into my academy that were pretty skilled, right? And couldn't get across the finish line. I was like, oh my God, man, that was me. And I'm not going to allow this to happen anymore. There's no way I'm going to let this happen. I'm going to figure this out, and I'm going to figure out how to solve the riddle and put a plan in place so I can give my athletes an opportunity to win. By the way, that's one of the best probably lessons I ever learned from my dear friend Bill Parcells, is that he said, hey, you owe it to your athletes an opportunity to win. That's what you do. So I wasn't finding any of this stuff. So what did I do? I got introduced to Bill and right when he came to the Cowboys in the early 2000s. And I was expressing to him about all the things that I was working on and all the things that I wanted to get better at that I didn't know. And I just said, hey, I can't find it in my sport. And I started picking his brain. He started sharing things with me that I'd never heard before. I wanted to learn how to train my athletes for high stakes situations and high stakes competition. And all I would do is just get their games hitting it well and help prepare them for competition as well as I could from strategies and all that. Knew how to do that stuff, but the preparation in their game. And you know what? He was really kind to me, and he brought me into the NFL and put me under his wing, and I learned a ton from him. And when he was at the Cowboys, Sean Payton was with him, who's amazing, and I'm helping him out, which is fantastic, doing some work with the Saints. The late Tony Sperano, who was defensive line coach, man, guy was unbelievable. Learned a ton from him. And of course, Mike Zimmer, I've known forever. He's the head coach at Minnesota Vikings. I started bringing these concepts back into my academy, right? Just seeding it. Everything was defined. It was measured. It was timed. And man, performance started exploding. And events started happening and events started being won on a regular basis. And I knew I was really onto something. And so this went on for a few years while Bill was here. And I developed that ongoing relationship with the other coaches, with Coach Payton and Mike Zimmer. But here's the thing, is that I knew that there was a piece that was missing, all right? And that's what we're going to get into with these indicators. We talked about the training piece, right? That's one of the indicators, right? We've talked about the think piece, okay? And that's what I want to dive into now. So you basically have the three indicators are: one, how does a person think in a stressful situation? It's going to have an indication on your performance, all right? And the second one is how has a person trained for that competition? And I'll tell you what, Parcells put it to me pretty clear one day. He goes, Humphreys, he goes, if you don't know what it looks like on game day, how in the heck do you know what it needs to look like the week before? And if you don't know what it looks like the week before, how in the heck do you know what it needs to look like 2 weeks out, 3 weeks out, 4 weeks out, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, then the yearly goal planning model put together? And I was like, man, that's really important. He said, now the next piece is, he goes, your athletes must know what it needs to look like on game day. And I have these conversations all the time with these young athletes going into college, wanting to play collegiate sports, especially in golf. And I ask them, tell me what your game looks like on game day. And there's a long pause. And there's silence. They don't even know what to say. And my question to them is that if they don't know what it looks like on game day, who's doing the teaching and training and coaching? Do they really know what it looks like on game day? Hey, I'm going to be the first to tell you, I didn't. And I'm figuring it out, and I figured it out. But it took me a while to do it. So the mindset piece, okay, let's get back to the mindset piece. So there was this piece that was missing, and it was the mindset piece. Mindset training didn't exist. And honestly, today it really still doesn't exist. It's getting harder to get this information down from these ultra-elite athletes, especially at the Olympic level. Why? Because these guys don't have mindset coaches. And to get the information from these guys, to try to break it down what they're doing, it's becoming very, very few and far between. I knew I needed to get to the Olympic level, and I knew I needed a higher level of learning from a mindset standpoint. And out of the blue, one of my friends called me and said, Sean, I've got an introduction for you. And I'm like, holy cow. And so we sat down and I met this Olympic coach. And you guys may know him. His name's Coach Basham, Lanny Basham. And so this is what's interesting about Coach Basham. I shared with him my story and what mission I was on and what I was doing with the kids and the work that I'd done in the NFL and learning how to train. And I asked him to come out and observe how we trained, and he critiqued me and said, hey, you're spot on. And I was like, okay, that's great. Now I want to get spot on the mindset piece. And what's interesting about Coach Basham is that he won an Olympic silver, or a bronze, a silver, and a gold. And what's interesting about him is that he got sick and tired of being sick and tired a lot younger or a lot earlier than I did. And Coach Basham's kind of on the backside of his coaching now, still does a great job, and his sons do. And so I started learning these concepts. So this is what happened, is that he knew he could beat these guys, and he could beat them in regular competition, but when it came down to winning the gold, they were getting the best of him. So what did he do? He went and he interviewed, I don't know how many hundreds of Olympic gold medalists and coaches, and he started building these principles, okay, and defining them. What is it that athletes think about before the action? And what should they think about and why? And it should be defined, it should be measured, it should be timed. And what do athletes think about during the action? And what should you think about and why? And then what do athletes think about after the action? And why? And holy cow, he built this system, he replicated it and duplicated it, went and set all these world records, won an Olympic gold medal that stood for years, and he's coached a ton of Olympic gold medalists in multiple sports. And man, he brought me under his wing, and I spent years with him learning the system, and I begged him to come into my academy, and he came in our academy, and his son did too, and we studied under them for years, and we mastered the system, and then all of a sudden performance just exploded, because now we had the think piece, we had the training piece, and we had the reinforcement piece. And I'm going to talk about the reinforcement piece here in just a second. And so then, in 17 years of running the academy, all of our graduating seniors had an opportunity to play golf. Not all of them took it, because we had some engineers going in, but they had that opportunity, and they accomplished goals that they never thought they could do, because we taught them these three performance indicators. So you got the think piece, you got the training piece, and the reinforcement piece. So remember just a few minutes ago, I was talking about these highs and lows in scores, right? Shoot a low round one day, higher the next, low on the front, high on the back, high on the front side, low on the back side. All these ups and downs. I call them the Jekyll Hyde, or the helter-skelter of the scores in golf. And so what's interesting is that when you go from shooting a low number to a high number, or a high number to a low number, majority of the time that's what is called a self-image correction. All right? So a self-image correction. So your self-image, all right? The self-image is the sum of your habits and your attitudes, all right? And it's your area of comfort that you like to operate in, and everybody has it. So for example, that's why you see these adjustments. I could go out and shoot in the 60s one day, but it's not like me to do it 2 days in a row, so I'll throw a 75 at them. Here's something also crazy, is that, so when you think about that in the simplest context, let's say that you have a golfer that shoots 75 on a regular basis, right? They're always around there. They get 3 or 4 under par, and they're coming down the stretch. It's not like them to shoot under par. That's outside their area of comfort. That's outside their comfort zone. They'll figure out how to shoot 75. They do it all the time. They'll throw some double bogeys in there, a couple bogeys coming down stretch, 3-putt the last hole. Next thing you know, it's 75 or 76. Why? Because it's our area of comfort that we operate in. Now here's the crazy piece, all right? You can't do a darn thing about your self-image in competition, because it actually controls your technical. Yeah, let me say that again. It actually controls how you operate technically. This is the crazy stuff, okay? Now, but here's the thing. You can change it, okay? And paired with, when you talk about the mindset training and you talk about the actual training, you pair those two together, you can start changing your self-image. Now, hey, don't get me wrong. Technical skills are extremely important, but you have to grow mindset skills at the same time. That's never done. But they do it at the Olympic level all day long. And so when you look at, from a mindset standpoint, Your self-image makes you act like you. And so your imprints, you change it by imprinting. That's the easiest way to change it. What you think about, what we talk about, and what we write about improves the probability of that thing happening, good or bad. So have you ever been to a tournament, right? A youth tournament. See it all the time. When the kids finish the event, they all congregate together and they all talk about how bad they played. They just vomit on themselves. They're like, they can't get it out. Oh my gosh, I hit 2 balls out of bounds. I had 6 3-putts. I had 3 doubles in a row. And it just goes on and on and on and on. And they don't realize the mental errors that they're making in killing their self-image. They don't realize it. But your self-image is like a bank in your body, okay, and in your mind. And you're making deposits to it all the time. When you make really good deposits in it, it grows. When you make negative deposits, it shrinks. And we beat ourselves up all the time, but we don't even know that we do it. Even the negative piece. So here's kind of a rule of thumb. Earmark this, okay? You never talk about what you don't want to have happen. You never talk about what you don't want to have happen. You talk about what you want to have happen. You talk about what you're doing, what you're working on. Talk about solutions. Your training needs to be solutions-based, not problem-based. And if you start doing that, you can start imprinting and growing your self-image. Now, when you pair these three, when you look at the think piece, the training piece, and the reinforcement piece, your training should be designed around growing and building your self-image. Now, here's the thing, man. When you talk about training, all these other sports that we've been around, their training has higher consequences than the competition. Golf never has that. Never has. Never seen it. Now, I've seen some tour players that train like that, but they probably don't know what they're doing. They just do it. But your training, think about it in sports here in the U.S. That has training that it has very high consequences. That's higher than competition. Wrestling is one. You ever been around wrestlers? Oh my God, they're some of the most miserable people in the world before they go into competition. They can't eat, they can't drink anything, they're pulling weight, they're miserable. And then when they get out of competition, oh my God, they're the greatest people to be around. Boxing's like that. Really, all your Olympic sports are like that. They have higher consequences. Well, we brought down that Olympic training model, and that's how we train our athletes now, which is crazy. So the self-image is critical. It's how you reinforce. After you reinforce at the end of the day, the end of the week, the end of the month, the end of the quarter, the end of the year. We use Olympic performance journals with our athletes all the time, and it's defined, it's measured, it's timed. What they write in it, that grows and protects their self-image, and it helps them unpack the day and put solutions in place. We've got to teach and train and coach our athletes and our kids, but we have to be able to draw out it as well. We've got to draw information out from them all the time. So those 3 indicators are crazy. So when you talk about the training piece, right? So this is something that I learned at the Olympic level, is that when you look at stats, okay, is that a lot of people are so caught up in numbers and they're so caught up in statistics. Did you know that statistics are not even brain compatible? They're not brain compatible. Here's the reason why. Is that, let's say if you have average fairways, greens and regulations, on and on and on, average 1 putts, average 2 putts, so you have all these averages. Every time you look at stats, you look at athletes and their eyes just kind of glaze over. Here's the reason why. They're not brain compatible. The athlete did not perform those numbers. It doesn't resonate with them. You know what does resonate? You know what they do at the Olympic level? Our personal best. They keep track of their personal best in all these categories. So this is kind of what an interview looks like when I interview a college athlete or a young athlete that's working on their game. And it kind of goes like this. It's like, okay, so tell me about your training. Do you work on short putts? Like, yeah, man, I work on short putts all the time. So like 4-footers? Yeah. So tell me this. Tell me what's your personal best and how many have you made in a row at 4 feet and when did you do it? And they're like, well, coach, I don't even keep track of that. I'm like, okay, all right. So how about your distance putting? Do you work on distance putting? They're like, yeah, I work on distance putting all the time. It's the easiest way to shave strokes off your game. If you reduce three putts, it's the easiest and fastest way. And I'm like, okay, cool. They're talking the language. I say, okay, so at 30 feet, tell me what your personal best is with consecutive 2 putts in a row from different strategies along the same line. What's your personal best and when did you do it? Coach, I don't even train like that. I don't even keep track of it. I said, okay, so what about short game? You work on short game? Coach, I work on short game all the time. All right, cool. So tell me this. What is your personal best of getting up and down at multiple shots around the green, different shots? What's your personal best consecutive up and downs in a row, and when did you do it? Coach, I don't even train to get up and down. And I'm like, okay, so if you don't measure it, how do you manage it? And if you don't manage it, how do you raise it to a higher level? You can't do it. Because all the athletes are just randomly and aimlessly going about their training because nothing's defined, it's not measured, and it sure isn't timed. I'm telling you, that's what's going on right now, and I see it all the time that kids get dropped off. They go see their technical coach, and these technical coaches are doing a great job. They really are, but it kind of stops there. And you know, they leave and they come back and they work on the technical piece here. So my question is what are you working on in your game that allows you to take the technical piece to where you can trust and commit to it in competition, and also be able to control your thoughts in an inconsistent environment on a regular basis? What are you doing about that? Well, if you would like to be a part of my private client group, I would be more than happy to have a conversation with you around this. I do it every week with parents, whether you're a parent, whether you're a coach, or just an athlete. I was just on the phone yesterday with this young girl from Nebraska. She was a sophomore. She's the one that scheduled the appointment. She's a sophomore in high school. She scheduled the appointment. We had the conversation. We talked about it for about 50 minutes. She loved everything that we're talking about. I've got another call with her tomorrow on a follow-up to get her involved in our training. So what does that look like, right? What does our training look like? So this onboarding stuff, right? So I went to, so I'm going to back up just for a second. So 5 years ago, I started taking this program, EPS, right? So I built this program, EPS, Mastering How You Think, Train, and Perform. Those are the 3 performance indicators, right? And the reinforcement really replaces the performance piece. And I started rolling it out to the collegiate environment. And now we've got over 20 schools running this system around the United States, and it's the success stories have been insane. So, excuse me, let me tell you about how insane it's been. Every team that we've worked with, they have gone out and won within 10 days. They've had an individual win within 10 days. Okay? Last year we had 2 teams that were ranked right around between 123 and 135 in the country, and they finished the season in the top 50. Do you know how many top 50 teams you have to beat on a regular basis to move into the top 50? It's crazy. It's insane how many you have to. And that's what we're doing. We're helping these. And so what I get to do as a coach, I get to go in and I get to take a look at how they're operating, how are they thinking, how are they training, how are they reinforcing, and I go after the most important piece right there in that moment, and I start working on that and have an impact on what they're doing. That's how you start changing performance. That's how you start changing the numbers. And that's what we've done. Most of the time, nobody knows how to train. And you start getting the training going, and then you wrap the mindset piece around it. Oh my God, it gets crazy. All right? So I went to all these coaches last year. I said, all these college coaches, I said, what are you doing with your incoming freshmen? And they're like, well, we can't do anything with our incoming freshmen from a training standpoint. And I knew that. I said, I know that. I said, but I can. And they're like, oh my gosh. I said, what if we created an onboarding program for these athletes? And that as soon as they sign, or they could even commit as soon as they give the verbal and you know that you're going to sign them, they get a minimum of 9 months in collegiate onboarding training and running EPS. So they get 9 months of that. And by the time they come through your gates, August 17th, they're going to be so prepared on the think piece. They know how to train and run all the segments, run all the modules. They know how to reinforce. They're growing their self-image. And they're like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. So we started last year. We had 20 kids in our program, okay? Of those 20, every athlete accomplished their personal best prior to going into the school. Now, I was saying that they accomplished their goals, they won multiple times, and man, they were so ready. So out of that 20, 3 of them have already won their first college events. 5 of these incoming freshmen went to one team, okay? They all are on that starting team. They won the first 4 collegiate events this fall on that team. One of the girls has won 3 times. And let me tell you about this. When you talk about a self-image, I'll tell you the story about self-image. This is crazy. So Annie, who's out in California, when I got her, her best score was 76. Okay, and I got her in November of last year. And I started working with her in EPS. Okay. Within a few months, it went to 73. She had some high finishes, and then hadn't won or anything, but she was having winning performances, and that's the key. Earmark that. She was having winning performances, and when you start stringing winning performances together, attainment is waiting there for you. So she's preparing for this last event before she's going into college. Okay. We prepare. We put the plan together weeks in advance, preload the golf course. We have the mapping. We've got the software from the apps that we use. Those are really cool stuff. We'll talk about those in a different segment. But we get her prepared for this event. She goes out the first day and shoots 71. New personal best. I'm like, this is fantastic. I talked to her. We preloaded again the golf course the night before, rehearsed the entire round, every single shot, every detail. So you're thinking about maybe there's probably going to be a self-image correction, right? And I'm thinking there is too. I don't know how much it's going to be. Second day she goes out and shoots 65. I know, right? 65? Are you freaking kidding me? Yeah, there was a self-image correction, taking it to deep low number. So we chatted on the phone. We talked about everything that she did. And we took everything from the 65, we imprinted it into the final round, preloaded it again. So now I'm thinking, all right, where's this going to go from a final round? What kind of self-image correction is there going to be, right? Okay. All right. Final round, 73, which tied her previous personal best. She won by 13 shots. And so I'm talking with her on the phone. I said, Annie, I said, man, congratulations. I said, it's fantastic. I said, your 65 was amazing. I said, but you know what was extraordinary? Was your final round 73. And she's like, Coach, how's that? I said, yeah. I said, you're 73. I said, because that's the amount that your self-image is going to adjust now, because you've been growing it with all of these imprints, all the reinforcement, all the training that you've been doing is about growing your self-image. So it's becoming like you to do it. Again, It's becoming like you to do it. Here's the deal, is that your self-image adjusts because it's not like you to do it. If you want it to become like you to do something, then you have to train like it's you to do it. And that's what EPS does. And she's like, oh my gosh, coach, she goes, I had no idea my self-image was growing. I said, you don't. You only know what it imprints and only knows what it does to you in competition. See, the self-image is like a throttle on a motorcycle, okay? If it's like you to do it, it gives it the gas and it shoots you through it. If it's not like you to do it, it shuts it off and you don't get it done. And he was like, oh my gosh, she goes, I had no idea. So that's what this training is all about. I'm like, yes, she gets it. She won 3 events this year. She finished runner-up twice at her school as a freshman, and she's moved in. She's probably the number 2 player in the country now in Division III golf. And she had, I don't know how many rounds of golf under par, but she just won at Arkansas State and shot 70, 71, 70, set a new school 54 scoring record. I mean, she's on fire. Where's her self-image? It's all self-image. Now, here's the caveat. I never saw her in person. I'm not kidding you. I never saw her in person. Matter of fact, all 20 of those athletes that were in the college onboarding program, I never saw them in person. That's how cool our onboarding program is. It's like a high-level, advanced collegiate program or course, college course that you're taking that you interact with your professor every week. And I'm your professor. I mean, that's how we're getting this done. I never saw any of them, and they're absolutely killing it. Again, if you would like to have a conversation around your training or your daughter or your son's training or your athletes that you're coaching around their training, I would love to have a discovery call with you. This broadcast is going to be on a rebroadcast. I want to answer your questions. We're going to do this every Wednesday on Hump Day. Join us every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, and we're going to talk high performance. I really appreciate you tuning in and joining me. I hope you've enjoyed the video as much as I've enjoyed putting this together for you. You guys have a great evening, and I'll see you next week.